What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Just Be Real podcast. I'm your host, Marissa Tong. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. So this week, we're joined by another guest, special guest this week, a musician, a creative, a singer, songwriter. Can I say that? Yeah. Ashton, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm well. I'm present, well rested, and not high, not low. Just chilling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are.
I'm a musician, full-time musician, artist, singer, songwriter, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I grew up doing music. Grew up in a family of musicians. My dad was also a singer. He was mainly a singer. He was also the bass guitarist in a band with his brothers, and they were like Indo-Caribbean band. Toured a little in that space and the soca space and chutney soca space and Bollywood music. Up to today, they've done a lot of. And growing up in the studio setting, it was kind of always like an innate thing for me growing up around them. School nights, my mom didn't always like that, but I was in the studio with my dad, or I was at a gig with my dad, or I was at funerals that he was performing at on a weeknight, and no place where, especially a mother who's an educator too, she didn't want her kids out like that. So,
Yeah.
but I'm glad he did, and I'm glad that she bit her tongue a lot of the times too, because that's what was needed. That was early schooling before actually going to school for music, which was in high school. And high school, college, studied jazz, cabaret, Western classical music. In college, I majored in music business and vocal performance and got to study under some great teachers, great mentors, and graduating there. Since then, I've been applying whatever I learned there to my own music.
I love that. What was the first thing that you got into? Was it like playing instruments? Was it singing?
I think it was singing. There's some videos with my dad. I was singing on a stage with him, and he would always bring me on stage like around 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can always tell. My sisters have it too. When you hear a kid singing in pitch or doing different things with their voice, you're into music as well. So I think you would know. Yeah, that was my thing.
Yeah.
That was my nature. And as a young adult, I've definitely dabbled into different professions. Not that I wouldn't again. There's no right or wrong, but everything always led me back to this. I loved playing football when I was in high school. I was could have been a great quarterback, I think. But yeah, everything led me back to music. Tried real estate for a little bit. Maybe I would again too, but at the time, everything always led me back to music. So,
I find that so interesting because I feel like 4 or 5 is the age where I also remember like getting into like dance, like really, like really enjoying it. And same thing like with my family. So my dad is from the island of Dominica. So I grew up around like a lot of soca, calypso, reggae music. And I always like remember just dancing like in our living room. And my parents, like friends would come over, I'd be dancing for them. Like, so it's so cool how we can always like tap back to our childhood to kind of match it up with what we're really passionate about. Yeah.
Like I have I still go through composition notebooks today that I use, and I definitely remember that around 10 years old, 11 years old. I was writing songs then. I don't know if they were good songs, but I was always writing in a black and white notebook. So I'm still like that. I don't look at it as, I gotta keep the kid in me alive or anything like that. I think you're an eternal being, and the body changes, but what the purpose is and your alignment is here from that time. So if you can, that's the closest time in our lives is when we're kids, because we're closer to our divine nature.
Yeah.
So if we can maintain that throughout this existence while we're here, I think that's holy grail or something you call it.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
I think it's such a blessing to be able to know what your purpose is, right? And like to be able to connect with your authentic self, like who you're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be in this lifetime. But I feel like, and I'm sure like a lot of people are very disconnected from that. So what's something that keeps you in alignment? Like what keeps you on the right path, right? Because I'm sure like as a creative, I can for sure attest to feeling challenged or sometimes feeling like discouraged or feeling like this isn't the right thing for me, like this isn't bringing in the income, maybe, like
Yeah.
there's so many different like roadblocks that creatives come across,
Yeah.
right? So what keeps you going? Like
I
what
think
motivates you?
I think there's just I know motivation is like I don't like the word too much in the last couple of years. But the discipline, which I kind of like better, is that it's just a knowing. Like I said, like since you were a kid, you know that you're supposed to do this. It's like a mother that's let's say a single mother or a parent or a father, and you have these kids to take care of. You know that you have to do those things. So I started following Kobe Bryant a lot this year, and our musical family that we have, our team. I made that the theme for the team all
Mm-hmm.
year was follow that mama mentality using the 24 and everything. It
Yeah.
was aligned. And one thing he says in an interview is get over yourself. A guy that healthily used his ego to the best of his ability to win the championships he did and get all of those goals and accolades that he did. He also knew how to get over himself and not make it about him.
Mm.
It wasn't about him the whole time. People thought it was about him. People
Mm-hmm.
thought he was a ball hog and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
he was always thinking about the collective progressivement of the team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's it's not about me. There's a bigger thing here that we're supposed to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a bigger message that we have. And also on the human level of things, keeps me going is once in a while I remember I'm very fortunate to have a family that supports me, all of them, my aunts, my uncles, my parents, especially my siblings. And I do think about all the people that have not just a belief but a conviction in you, and that have invested in you in one way or another,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily monetarily, but in so many ways my family's invested. And I think of them, so it's there's some quote that I read recently, like when you don't do what you know your purpose is, it's disrespectful to those who believe in you.
That's so
You
good.
know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and there's a balance too. It's like you can't live your life like for other people's, but I do like I do sometimes think of other beings that are aligned with the purpose and the message. So I think of them and I get up and go to work.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing to have the support from your family. And that is for sure like a very fortunate thing because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people, including myself, that don't have like the support, from family. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's so important. And yes, you can build communities, right? Like I've been able to build a beautiful community here. And I have the support from my friends and, like my students and mentors and things like that. But to have it from your family, it hits different.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned ego a little bit when you were talking about Kobe. How do you, as an artist, as a musician, as a singer, like, how do you separate ego from the artist, right? Because, like, I'm sure people could look at your videos and be like, oh, he's feeling himself or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like you have to put on this persona, the same as me. Like when I'm dancing, I have to put on
Mm-hmm.
this person, right? This character. So how do you separate that from ego?
We're in a character. We're here playing a character. Even if we weren't dancers and artists, or even being Marissa or being Ashton in just a family, um, that's still a character. Our last names are still, these are all like man made things that I don't think that we shouldn't appreciate. We should appreciate them, but it's still man made and it's still keeping you in that matrix. And when you know that no music and just
No
listening
music.
or the music, you know what I mean? It's all opportunities to tune in to the nature that we're connected with, that we
Mm.
are,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Ooh, can we talk about spirituality a little bit? Because first of all, I just want to say that I love how open you are, like to talk about spirituality in a sense where it's not like super fake, or you're hearing all these people talk about, oh, you can manifest this and blah, 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 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It comes off really authentic. So, like how did you get into spirituality? Like, does it come from your family? Does it come from culture,
I
roots?
definitely say my dad and I were, I don't know how to say it, like soulmates or something like that. We were born on the same day.
Oh wow.
And I just remember as like a toddler having these crazy conversations on our kitchen floor in the middle of the night,
Mm-hmm.
just being in tune, and we were always linked like that. And there's a bunch of other beings that I'm thankful for, to have that similar relationship that I do with him. But it was always there, and I always felt like the whole matrix and the game, the human game, and parents and family and all of that. And then high school I was very tapped in, and reading scriptures and stuff like that, Hindu scriptures and the Bible, and I was connected with everything, not necessarily religious, though I love religious music of all religions. And I always felt like I was just doing time. I felt
Mm.
like I was doing time in high school. Like I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was supposed to be there for that time, playing the game and everything. Um, I kind of forgot your question. I'm going off right now,
Like
but it's
how did you
always
get into
been.
spirituality?
It's
Yeah.
always we've always been spiritual. We are spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, not
Mm-hmm.
the other way around.
Right.
You know,
So you feel like you always knew that from a child?
always knew
That's
that. Always knew
crazy.
that. And I think around like college, maybe like I got into the ego a little bit, and
As most people.
I started enjoying, being in college and women and dating and all of those things. Not that you can't do it now, but it's a lot different. It's from a different place.
Yeah.
You know, I was young and you wanted to look right, and your hair's got to be right, and got to look a certain way, and not, again, not that we don't do that now, but it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot more fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun. There's
Yeah.
there's days, and I got, like I said, I got a great team, and I love them. One of my big brothers that's on the team, like he's crazy about, like, in a good way, a healthy way, like, teaching me how to fade my hair the right way, or sending me videos, or the fit's got to be the right way for these projects, the
Mm-hmm.
videos. But if it's not like that, he's well aware that this probably isn't gonna look like as perfect, like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in a tee and jeans, a black or a white tee and jeans. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know but it's fun. It's fun, and it's supposed to be fun. So I've always been tapped in as a spiritual being, and not one way is right and one way is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
you know being the dancer or being the artist, like, that's all one part of it. It's yin and yang. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
can't have one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah. And
that's
having
where I'm
fun
at.
is that's the purpose of life, right? Like I
Hmm.
talk about that a lot on this podcast, mostly in like my solo episodes, but I feel like everyone puts like this struggle forward, right? It's like everything has to be hard, everything has to be like hustle and
Grind and hustle,
grind,
yeah.
and like everything has to like no, you have to do this and wake up at 5 a.m. and hustle and go to the gym. And it's like, what about like just relaxing, right? Like when you
Yeah.
came here today, you were like, I slept for 12 hours.
Ordered
Like,
KFC and I watched The Office yesterday. I slept for
yeah,
12 hours.
yeah, you
Gotta do
need
that
that.
sometimes, yeah.
It's important. Yeah, it's important to enjoy life. And yes, like we should work, right? Like we have to work. We have to be able to provide. And ultimately, like aside from the money, right? Like we want to feel like we are doing something that fulfills us,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm sure like your music fulfills you, the things that you do fulfill you, like relationships fulfill you. So I think yes, we need those things, but we also need to be able to detach and
Definitely.
relax. Yeah.
And I definitely think that sometimes when we feel that burnout, like you and I are talking about it, like we wear a lot of different hats in our business, even though we're creatives. There's a lot of different roles that go into that, and so one of those roles is like business, or all that. There's different hats within the business roles, but
Mm-hmm.
businesses was never my thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been told that I'm becoming great at it, and I don't look at business the way like business people do,
Mm-hmm.
in this capitalistic kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it in alignment, and it's still a spiritual thing. It can be, and I've created a way for that to be a fun thing too, and an aligned thing as well. However, but when we feel that burnout and everything, sometimes it's because we're doing the thing that isn't necessarily our nature, which is okay. And I think
Yeah.
when you're aware of it, it's cool. Like, all right, how am I going to navigate this at this time? It's like we were talking about earlier. Like, if you buy a Dunkin' Donuts franchise and you own that franchise, you should still know how every aspect within that franchise works,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're doing it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's one thing I've learned with business. I've been fortunate to have a degree in music business and vocal performance, but the music business part, I always say I majored in it because I don't like it,
Yeah.
because I was aware that you needed to have that. And I grew up with really talented family, and they took their crack at the music industry as well when they were in their early 30s or so.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing like that they did wrong per se, but I wanted to learn, like, what are more ways that we can do this strategically and the right way, or whatever it is,
Right. Right.
to just be aware
Mm-hmm.
of how that works.
So, what are some things that you do to spark creativity? Like, do you ever have blocks, like creative blocks or moments where like you're having issues like writing or coming up with new ideas? Like, what sparks your creativity?
I've learned in the last year through I heard this through J. Cole talking about a book called The Artist Within, and I kind of don't wait for the inspiration anymore, and it comes, but you can't wait for it if this is what we know that our purpose is. I kind of write maybe 5 days a week in the morning for an hour versus like just trying to sit down and write an entire song and just kind of do brick by brick. And
Mm,
it might take me 2 weeks to finish a song these days, and I just take the little pieces here and there and the right pieces align. But I don't wait for the inspiration. It's like a fisherman. You talked to me about Rick Rubin. I heard this from him. A fisherman can't go to the lake or a pond and say, like, I'm gonna go out and catch me 5 fish today.
right.
You
You
don't
don't
have
know.
that ability to know that. But if you sit down there with your rod, your chances of catching one fish is definitely increased. So,
Mm-hmm.
for me, my rod is a pen, you know,
Yeah.
a black or a blue pen. And if I
Yeah.
sit down with that rod, then the chances are increased. And if there's a block, embrace the block, write about the block,
I love
just
that.
write. Like, there's a moment there where we're just vessels, and at that moment is always happening, even right now. There's just words coming out of this mouth, and who knows where it's coming from, but they're just a vessel, and you know, let that come through.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that,
Yeah.
and that in itself could be inspiring.
That is. Yeah. No, it's
you
true.
know,
It's
we
true.
are the spark. There is
Yeah.
never waiting for a spark. You are the spark. You know,
I think too sometimes switching up the environment helps, like at
for
least for
sure.
me. So like if I ever am feeling, like I could come to the studio and do choreo, but then maybe like at home I do something different, like
Hmm.
or I travel and that brings me some type of like inspiration from somewhere.
Definitely, the
Yeah.
traveling is. I almost always write a song after traveling somewhere.
Mhm.
I don't know how or why, or definitely, definitely helps change of scenery
It's
and environment
important.
and all of that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really important.
yeah,
And
I hear
then the
that.
last question before we wrap up, I want to ask you like, so we met through collaboration, right? Like you'd reach out to
Yeah,
me, work on a project with you, and
I think we met on Instagram,
yeah,
right, or TikTok.
Instagram.
Instagram, right? Yeah,
Instagram. And instantly, like, I loved your vibe, love your music. I only work with people who I genuinely feel like
yeah.
there's potential in them and that I like what they're putting out, right? Like, I don't want to
Right.
just work with anybody.
Likewise.
What? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
For you, like, what have you learned about collaboration? Like, what's the power in collaboration? Like, for you, what are some lessons that you've learned?
I've definitely learned, like you said, do what feels right, connect with who feels right. I went through a 1.5 to 2 year period where I didn't use any of these platforms or anything. And somebody that helps manage my career, he's my big brother. And he started teaching me, like, use these things, to our advantage, and you can be who you are in everyday life here as well. You know, even though like all these platforms on the internet, they can still be the matrix per se,
Mm,
but um, truth can be shared within that. You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about everyday life, and we can still share truth and connect with other people aligned with truth. And thankful that I met you through that. So it's just not overthinking and doing what feels right and connecting with who feels right, and you know who they are and you know who it is and you know what it is you guys should be doing, and even if you don't, you know, I'm like staring at this Yamaha uh, word, you know, that's it's alignment.
Yeah.
Everything here is aligned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody can give you the answers. You know, you can always seek advice or mentors and things like that, but we all have these answers within us internally. And
Mm-hmm.
when you silence the noise and tap in, you'll know. Just follow that intuition.
Yes. I
And
love
I
that.
don't know how concrete of advice that is, but
No, it's
that's
perfect.
how I roll.
That's honestly like simple, right? Like to some people that they're probably like, what does that mean? Right?
Yeah.
But if you know, right? Like just sometimes that takes, like you said, whether that's formal meditation, like sitting down, getting quiet, meditating, going within, or whether that's through music, whether
Mhm.
that's through movement, whether that's through traveling. So I think there's a lot of ways to tap in, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
One thing I've learned about being an entrepreneur is that we always need multiple sources of income. Okay. When things are a little crazy with the sales or not looking so good, we can always fall back on those other additional sources of income. So that's why I started drop shipping. It's one of the best ways to make some extra money, increase customer relationships, bring value to your business, as well as grow your brand awareness. I use Printful for all of my shop items. It's super easy if you're an entrepreneur. I know you're probably thinking like I do not have time to sit here and like order inventory and I'm not trying to hold a bunch of inventory, but I got you. Okay? I wouldn't recommend anything that's going to take up more of your time that you don't have. So with Printful, all you have to do is go on, pick your designs. They even have like pre-designed templates. So if designing shirts and hats and merch is not your thing, then don't worry because you have plenty of options to choose from on Printful. So all you have to do is just create an account, go in. They have so many options as far as products. You can do hats, bucket hats, snapbacks, dad hats, t-shirts, tanks. They even have sneakers and they also have like pet products. I definitely need to get Milo like a cute little bandana. So they have so many things to choose from. It's super easy. And if you use something like Wix or any website like Etsy, you can actually connect Printful directly to your e-commerce website and it'll sync up your items and then you could sell them directly from your website. So it's super easy, very, very easy. All the analytics are there so you can go and check your sales every single month. So if you're interested, check out the link in the show notes and set up your Printful account, okay? Because this year we're all about making money, honey. So check out Printful and let's get this bag. Ashton, thank you so much for
Thank you.
your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming on the show. Please tell the people where they can find you. Also, you have an EP coming out. Let the
Yeah,
people know.
the EP is very related to all of the gibberish that we've been talking about in the last few minutes or however long it's been. The EP is called Beyond Maya. So Maya is a Sanskrit word basically for illusion, and everything here is an illusion, and it's called Beyond Maya. We're beyond it. We're the spiritual being here having the human experience. And after COVID, I, you know, went through this. I was practically like a monk in my apartment and came out of it knowing that I'm still here to share this thing. So how could I kind of do both? And the only way is to do both because it goes both ways. There's a yin and a yang, and Beyond Maya is about a spiritual being going through the human experience, me being that spiritual being. And, you know, it talks about being the higher being, it talks about love and romance and things like that. It talks about, you know, there's a couple of club songs in there. Like, I don't look at that as anything different from being in church on a Sunday morning. I never have. It's kind of like Ray Charles when everybody like came at him because he was changing secular music
Mm-hmm.
into whatever you called it, blues and jazz or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was at the time. So it's all one thing, and this EP expresses that. It's four tracks that we've worked on for about 5 months now, and excited to share it with everybody. And you can follow the music at Ashton G Music everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, all the talks,
All the talks.
whatever else there is. It's the same name on everything, so
Yeah.
you can find us there.
Amazing. And if you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple, please rate and review the podcast if you're loving the podcast, if you're taking in everything and you're just like, I want to, hear more of it. So let us know what you think. Rate and review, preferably 5 stars. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to this channel, drop a comment, let us know what you thought of this episode. Don't forget to follow Ashton as well as myself on Instagram, Respect Kitty, and Let's Just Be Real Pod. And we'll catch you guys in another episode.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Let's take a picture.